Hey, you're listening to E-commerce and Brand Growth, the complete guide. I'm your host, Michael Campanaro, owner of Porters, a marketing consultant company that works with small to mid-sized brands or even large ones, doing everything from web development to marketing and e-commerce and blah, 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 blah. I am back with another episode to chat about things that come up on the day-to-day with my clients, as well as just being an e-commerce specialist, as well as a marketer. So I want to jump in right in here and not waste any time to talk about something that comes up a lot, how to successfully create content for your brand or company. It is oftentimes that I find I'll come to meet someone at a company, I'll find that they have some content, they are producing content, or they have some, let's say, some blog content, and I will dive in and just automatically see that there's just been sort of a tiny little push of this type of content, and they just scraped the surface and sort of gave up on it. Or maybe they just didn't see the traction they wanted there, and that sort of died. So I see this a lot. I actually am bringing up blogs because I see it oftentimes with blogs, especially nowadays. People are just sort of pushing the blogs to the side, and I think they thought that they could start publishing on their website and it would just gain traction without doing anything else, or that people would just navigate to it automatically, and maybe found out that that's not really the case and they need to do more with it and just didn't have the resources or time to do that. So I would say it's number one tip to approaching content like this is to just remember it's very important to focus on an objective and really commit to it. If you're focused on gaining traction to your site and you're using blog articles as a tactic, you need to have a long enough plan in place to really develop that content and really put out a lot of content, drive more traffic to it, and really push that content. And I would say that's the same for anything you do. If you create a podcast, you need to be consistent and set and on a regular basis have content to push out. If you're a YouTuber, you need to have content that's consistent and always being published. You need to stay very relevant and very consistent at all times if you are approaching any type of content creation. But going back to the blog, for an example, I would give these tips to someone if they're looking to increase things for their blog or be more productive at it. Number one, I would say to create a plan and an outline. So this can just be a basic explanation of what you're actually going to do. For example, I'm going to post 3 to 4 times a week, and I am going to publish content around this topic, like a specific topic. Or you could say, I'm going to make like half of my post educational, half of my post product based, but have a rough outline of what you are actually creating. Think of it like a checklist, a weekly checklist, monthly checklist, or whatever, about the content you're going to create, and make sure that you can kind of just have this idea of like, okay, I've checked that off. We can move on now from that content. I would say another thing that really helps after you have that outline is to create a list of topics. This list of topics could go on and on and on and on and on. I actually use Monday to create like boards for this, where you could create categories of topics. Like I was just saying, you could create a category for education, or you could create a category for product-based knowledge. You could even go deeper into that, create like different things around collections. You could create different topics that might be interested. In any case, it's just the idea of creating an outline, again, with a list of topics that fall under different buckets. And I would maybe even say that I'd venture to say to prioritize them. Maybe put your ones that you feel might be the best at the top, maybe what you feel like your customers might think are the best at the top of the list, and work your way down from that. The next thing I'd say is that you want to have the ability to stack up content in anything you do for at least a few months, you need to get ahead of things, because content production, as everyone knows, can be very time consuming, and you can't fall out of consistency once you start. So you don't want to run into this situation where you need to rush to get something done for that day because you've committed to this plan of producing something every day or every other day. You want to make sure that you're ahead of it so you can start being more creative, so that you can start really fine-tuning things as you gain some learnings once the content gets out there. Another thing I would definitely do if you don't have the ability to do it yourself is to hire a copywriter or a bunch of copywriters or a company like mine, porters.io, that is doing has copywriters too as a resource. You don't want to be the only one writing unless that's what you're doing and that's how much time you have. Obviously go for it. That's free and you might be the best one to talk about these subjects. But to really get ahead of it, and what we see with a lot of brands is that there are more than one, or there's one dedicated copywriter, or there are more than one copywriters, or they're just so far ahead in the content that's being produced that they can use one copywriter. And that's really, I think that's a great thing to have if you have like one brand voice and there's somebody who's really good at writing it. Obviously have that one copywriter take care of it. But my point here is really just that you're trying to free up time. You're trying to really get ahead very fast. So by hiring someone to write content or copy for you, or by you doing it, or even by you doing it, but if that person or you can do it in a bulk fashion, so write some copy, don't start publishing it right away. Start publishing it once you're a little bit ahead of time. I'm actually a really great example of like jumping in a little too soon, but I also did have a plan. So this podcast is a great example. I at the moment am now like set myself up to try to record every day, and my goal right now is just consistency and longevity. So I'm not looking too deep into my metrics yet. I obviously didn't expect things to just take off right away, but I'm gonna give it a long shot here. I have a plan, I have topics, I have all of these lines that I had worked on before. There's a lot of stuff that kind of went ahead of what's happened here, and I'd say that you want to just take the time doing that too. As a founder, an owner of a company, I know what it's like to be caught up in the weeds. So it can oftentimes seem really daunting to focus on something that isn't going to give you results immediately. And in this case, for my podcast, I really just wanted to help people and see if people are interested in these topics that I'm talking about. So that's why I got it started. But in a lot of cases, you're going to run other things other than a podcast, like a blog, for example, you're going to be doing it for reasons like increasing traffic to your site or gaining brand awareness. And you want to make sure that you have that planned out in a way that you're not going to have to waste too much time thinking. But going back, my point is you're not going to know if it's going to produce results right away. However, I'd say that people who are very consistent over time do see value in that in many different ways. So if you have an idea, I would give it a shot, stick with it. Try to always be testing something that isn't necessarily like a quick win. And I think like it's very important to remember that not everything is a quick win. So you're going to see results when you put in some hard work and you put in some time there. So really stick with it. Make sure you hit it with a plan. Content production is a very time-consuming process, regardless of what you're doing. Obviously, if you have external help, it can help. But in any case, I'm your host, Michael Campanaro. This is E-commerce and Brand Growth, the complete guide. Please stick around, subscribe, follow, find me on LinkedIn, and you can also visit my website at porters.io. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.